I wanted to talk a little bit about different fractions of like non-duality and different paths of awakening and different ways of looking at things, because like I'm the kind of person who just looked at a lot of different teachers, and I got drawn, I think, more to like the person sometimes, and sometimes, yeah, like how the person was expressing certain things in a certain way. And sometimes like different teachings seem to draw me in at the beginning, for sure. And I hear a lot of people say, oh, I love this, but I hate this, or oh, these people have it wrong and these people have it right. And there's a lot of like, there's just, there's just a lot of different ways of talking about Kundalini or talking about non-duality. And I kind of feel like, for me, I feel like some of the things that perhaps I had poo-pooed are in the end the things that really change things for me. So the other thing I really hear a lot on the non-dual path, and the teachers say follow your instinct, which I think is true. Like, you get drawn to what you get drawn to, and there's probably a reason why you got drawn to it. But on the flip side of that, I used to hear a lot of teachers talk about enlightenment and the non-dual awakening being an energetic shift. And I used to think, what the hell does that mean? Like, an energetic shift, like that just sounded really kind of, back then to me, kind of like, wow, that's just vague, and maybe they just are just saying that because they don't know how else to describe it. And so in my mind, that seemed to be the most ridiculous thing that I'd heard, an energetic shift. And then I got into energy work. So just saying, before you go judging somebody else's way of talking or thinking, or probably life is going to smack you around the face and go, hold on a second, maybe you need to listen to this. Which is where I come in, talking a little bit about radical non-duality. Radical non-duality was something I had read up online before getting into it. And I'd read the things about it, and I'd read people talking and saying, don't go anywhere near radical message because it's dangerous. People are being depersonalized. There's lots of spiritual bypassing. There was a lot of fear around the radical message, and I see there's a lot of fear around Kundalini too. And then I found myself after the pandemic kind of going, I'm going to go see if I can go and find some non-dual teachers in London. And I didn't really know it was a radical non-duality session, otherwise I probably wouldn't have gone. But I just kind of turned up on a whim, was like, oh, I'll just go to this one, and it was near where I lived, pretty much. And so I turned up, and really the person was just like, there is no you. And it was just so, it was such a depressing message. It was like, there's no me in this, and there's like, I don't know, it was just, it's very, it's just a very harsh message in a way, and I can see why people don't really like it. But looking back now, I feel like the radical message is like, when you have one of those friends who you say to them, you're like, just tell me the truth no matter what happens, yeah? I just always want to know the truth. And they're like, and then they give you the truth, and you're not looking great that day, and they're like, Katie, you look like rubbish. What have you done with your face? And you're like, oh, I really didn't want to hear that today, but you're kind of grateful for whatever the truth is, and usually it's beyond what you look like and more deeper than that. Like maybe there's something going on in your life, and you're kind of thankful that they've told you something that you needed to hear in that moment. And the radical message is like that. It's like the truth. It's like a brutal truth, And when I look back on that now, I got into the radical message for a year and a half, and there were certain things in that radical message that really helped me to kind of move forward. And one of them was, I'd put enlightenment on a pedestal, and I just thought it was just an impossibility. Like, me get enlightened, I mean, I've got more chance of like being a famous rock star probably. So I was just like, that just seems ridiculous. So that was one of, like, the radicals make non-duality seem just like normal, like the awakening is it's just your true nature, essentially, the seeing of your true nature. And I'm grateful for that message. I also think I'd done, up until that point, just a lot of watching videos online. And this was probably quite naive of me, but in my very, like, when I first, like, in my early 30s, I probably thought, well, if I just keep, I'm kind of like a self-teacher type of person. Like, I taught myself guitar, I taught myself to sing, I taught myself to do energy work. Like, it's all, like, I'm a self-teacher. And I thought maybe I could just self-teach myself enlightenment. So there I was, kind of like, I thought maybe if I watched enough videos and I watched enough things online, that something would click. And you sometimes heard teachers say online as well, saying they just watched this video and then suddenly, boom, it just happened. Or they read my book and boom, suddenly it would just happen. And I'd be like, maybe I could just read a book and it would just happen. And really, it's not the best way to approach enlightenment. I mean, that could happen for sure, but I think there are things that you can be doing as well. So those were the main ones. And also, I think the radical message just really, by the time I found the radical message, I felt like I could just really ask a lot of basic questions about, like, well, what is a non-dual awakening, and do I want it, and what's your actual experience like? How will my experience be? What is your experience like? I remember somebody talking about how their mind had changed, and that was kind of useful for me when I later on had a temporary mind awakening. I could suddenly see that what that person had been saying was essentially now what I was experiencing. So I do think that going to actually see somebody who is awakened really does help. You can just ask so many questions. And I think you can start to figure out more about what direction you kind of might be best going in. And I think after the radical message, I'd really realized that I needed to go more into my emotional self. And that's when I found Kundalini. And with Kundalini, obviously, there's still no guarantees of having the full non-dual awakening. But I knew at that point that even if that wasn't to happen, I would still have the benefit of being more emotionally balanced, essentially. And also, what the radical message did is it taught me about the seeking energy. So one of the things that the guy I went to see, his name's Tim Kliss, and I think he did a lot of seeking, and he described it, I think, as like a dog chasing its tail, and that it wasn't really until the seeking energy was over that the actual, if there was going to be an awakening, that the process began. And I remember hearing that and thinking, I've just done 8 years of like looking at videos and meditating and, you know, trying to look at things beyond my senses and inquiring. And then here was this guy saying, the process hasn't even really begun until the seeking energy is over. And that was a brutal truth. You know, that was just like, that was the last thing I wanted to hear. But have now come to see, for me, I don't know if it's the truth for everybody, because I do think there can be people who probably can have spontaneous awakenings, or they find a path and that path just works. But for me, I did a lot of seeking. I was going through a lot of different paths. And for me, this process has begun after the seeking energy has unwound. But obviously, I add the caveat that I still have no idea where this is going. So yeah, I wanted to talk about that because I basically, summing up, the things that you're most afraid of, the things that you think are probably rubbish or that you poo-pooed, might just be the thing that you need to look into. And equally, the thing that you get really drawn to might also be the thing that you really need. But both can be true.